Thank you. Awesome. Yay. How's it going? Dear Lord, these lights, it's like the mothership this morning. It's extreme. Is there any way we could get the lights just a tiny bit down? I know for video, you need them a little bit. We've got a live stream going out. Yeah, I just disappeared. We got a live stream going out, and I know we need it for that. Hey, welcome live stream people. We got people all over the place watching. Yep. They're watching the service from their homes and from other states and other places, so that's awesome. So we welcome you. But I'm also trying not to go blind before 40. Awesome. That's perfect. You guys are great. Yay. How's everybody doing? Good deal. I'm excited to be here this morning. It's a nice day outside once again. I feel like we say this every week because Jesus is blessing humble every week. It's like on Sundays is our best days. I love nice days. So I won't keep you here all day, just half of it. No, I won't do that either. Hey, if you're new here and you're wondering, my gosh, why do they worship so long? I'll tell you why. Because I think sometimes it deserves an explanation. Because you go to some churches, it's 20 minutes, and that's fine. That's fine for them. You go to some churches, 30 minutes. That's fine for them. You go to some churches, they hit 40 minutes. That's fine for them. Why do we do 45 minutes to an hour? Because we've discovered something. And I'm not saying they haven't discovered it, but the way that we discovered it has affected the length in which we worship. And we actually cut it off at the point that we cut it off at instead of going all day, because we know that most all of you would go all day if we gave you the opportunity. And we know the worship team definitely would, wherever they are. Yes, the worship team definitely would. So the reason we worship so long is because we've had this discovery about God that He is absolutely crazy about us. He's crazy awesome. He's extravagant in the way that He loves, the way that He shows up. He's almighty and powerful, and He doesn't just pour out, He overflows. If God was a bottle of water, He would be one that stayed under the tap and just kept overflowing. This is full for man, full for God it's overflowing everywhere. And so we know that about Him. And so when it comes to worship, we just try to love Him the way that He loves us, and it looks like cutting it off at 45 minutes, but 45 minutes isn't long enough. So if you're new here and you're wondering why in the world do they worship for so long, well, that's just a little touch. And honestly, think about it too. If eternity is eternal worship, then 45 minutes is just a drop in the bucket. So we're preparing you for eternity, if that feels like a long time. If you can't do 45 minutes, then eternity is going to get real long. I heard eternity. Who was that explained that? I forget his name. This guy, when I was in first year school ministry a long time ago, that's why I forgot his name. He explained eternity like this. If eternity was a mountain, the biggest mountain you'd ever seen, and once a year, a blue jay flew by that mountain, and its tail just barely dusted the top of that mountain. By the time that blue jay got that mountain to be the size of a grain of sand, by dusting the top each year, and that mountain was just the size of a grain of sand, that's 1 second in eternity. And I was like, because how many of you know we live in and think through time? Like our brains are stuck hardwired in time, and that's kind of how we think, and it's everything we think through. Whether we know it or not, we think through time when we approach our lives, when we approach anything really, we're thinking through time. And eternity is so far outside of time that even that, picture of a blue jay flying by the biggest mountain you've seen, and just its tail just takes a little bit of dust off the top, and by the time that mountain gets whittled all the way down into just one grain of sand, that's a second in eternity, is just mind-blowing to us. But God lives outside of time and space, and to Him, that's normal. And truly, that's not even a picture of eternity, because eternity can't have time put on it. But my best way of describing eternity to you is by using time. Once a year, this thing happens, and by the time, that's 1 second. Why? Because we're hardwired for time. It's just what we do. It's the way we're raised. It's what we're born. It's the world we live in. I want to read to you a verse. You all right with that? You guys like the Bible? If you brought your Bible, go ahead and open it to Isaiah chapter 9. If you got your phone, open it to Isaiah chapter 9. We're going to start at verse 6. Isaiah 9. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. This is talking about Christ. And the government will be upon his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace, there will be no end, upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, to order it and establish it with judgment and justice. From that time forward, even forever, the zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. Did you hear that? It's worded so weird that it's easy to skip through it because it's worded outside of time and space. It does use words like time, but then it goes on to say things like forever. So listen to it again. I'm going to read it one more time. I'm going to jump halfway down, and I'm going to start at verse 7. Of the increase of his government and peace, there will be no end. Think about that. Something with no end to it. Forever. Forever. I'm trying to get your brain to go with me here. There will be no end upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, to order it and establish it with judgment and justice from that time forward. So it uses time, and even forever. We live in everything about us is time zones. If you're on the East Coast and something's coming on TV, you're thinking through what time zone is it on. If you're watching a UFC fight, you got to stay up later on the East Coast than you do on the West Coast. Now, thank God I moved back to the best coast so I can watch my UFC fights at 7 instead of 10. I remember nights where I'm like, I'm going to do UFC Saturday night, but I'm also going to speak Sunday morning. And on the East Coast, it starts at 10. You're done at like 1 or 2 a.m. And you stumble to bed like, dang it, I'm so tired and have to get up and speak in the morning. And everything we do is done around the constructs of time. And now here I get to watch it at 7 and still have a night when it's done. It's so awesome. And still speak in the morning and not be tired because we start at 11 also, which is amazing that Humboldt County is on island time. We're totally an island, aren't we? You go to any island, they're on island time. They just start when it starts, and Humboldt County is totally on island time because we have this curtain of redwoods that separates us from the rest of the world. It's awesome. I love it. But everything about man is based around time. Everything man builds has a time limit to it. This building right here, right now, is slowly crumbling around us. It's just really slowly happening. And we're putting new paint on it, and we're putting new trim up, and we're putting new doors up. We're trying to prolong its life, but honestly, everything man builds is slowly crumbling. It's slowly dying. I'm not being sad. This is just the truth. You can look in cities where there were old buildings and now there are new buildings in their place. Why? Because the old buildings slowly got to a place where it's so dilapidated it was time for change. An upgrade came and now there's a new building in its place. You can look at companies. There was someone leading the company a decade ago that's no longer leading the company. Why? Because they're out with the old and it's in with the new, and there's someone new leading the company. And you can look at companies that were around for 40 years and they don't exist anymore. Why? Because they were replaced by something maybe bigger or better or faster or smarter or stronger or something. And everything that man builds has a timestamp on it. And man tries to slow down or prolong the timestamp on what they build, but inevitably there's going to be an end to whatever it is that's built. The thing about man, the difference between man and God is this. Man builds a building, and as it slowly crumbles, it gets time to replace it. We bulldoze it out of the way, and we use all new material, and we build a new one in its place, and that old thing just goes to a landfill. The thing about God that's interesting is, yes, while you see life and death happening, and there is a timestamp to a lot of things, and you see old trees and they're there and they're putting out new fruit and all this stuff's happening, but over time this old tree, it has a timestamp to it, so it slowly starts falling apart. It falls into the earth and there's a death that happens, right? Right? So, the young people are like, yes, some of us that are a little further along in age is like, where is he going with this? Just bear with me here. Some of you don't like that. I even pointed that out. This is the difference between God and man, though. Man builds things that are only here for a short amount of time, and then they're replaced by something else. God builds things with time in mind, sometimes, but as they die, they actually feed the ground, and new life comes up from what was death. right? Man builds time and God builds eternal. Man builds for man's own self, most of man, and God builds for generations to come. Man has today in mind, and God has all of eternity in mind. Man invents for now, and God invented eternity. I have this garden at my house. I like gardening. We got all these little animals, and in fact, the chickens found a way into the garden now, and they've been plucking my cherry tomatoes. I like chase them out. They grab a cherry tomato in their mouth, and they go running from the garden as fast as they can, and they hide in the chicken coop. I don't even think they like eating them. I think it's become a game because they know that I'll chase them if they do it. I'll be like in the house and open the window. I'm like, hey, shoot. And they're like, wah, run off with a little cherry tomato. They love the green ones too before they even get ripe. It's like a slap in the face. Like, I'm not even going to let it get ripe. But I got this garden, and it's going really well. Like, we built this garden, and I've been taking good care of it. And, you know, it's been fertilized, and everything's going well. And you see as these plants grow, there's leaves dying on them. There's fruit that I don't get to in time. Some of the tomatoes, man, they just grow too fast to even keep up with them. So some of the cherry tomatoes, you know, they ripen too fast, and they're rotten. It's just too fast. Like, things are happening too fast. But I've found something out in gardening, that God has created plants in such a way that even the waste of the plant, even the rotten fruit as it falls to the ground, feeds the plant once again. The best nutrients a plant can get is as you trim off these dead things, you just let it sit on the soil above it. And it feeds the plant, and the plant gets stronger, and there's more fruit that happens. Another thing that I'm doing in my yard is composting. I've never done this before. I moved to Humboldt, and I've turned into whatever, a gardener or whatever. I'm a gardener now. It's awesome. It's my way of giving back for also being a hunter. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. But in this garden, in composting, I'm taking all this dead material and I'm putting it all together, and there's green and brown. And if you know anything about compost, you got to like make a balance here. And we put it all together, and it attracts small living organisms to it that eat it, and they, you know, recycle it and everything, and it turns back into like super soil to feed the ground once again. So I've got this whole pile of super soil in my compost bin that's slowly working. It heats up. It gets extremely hot, and I keep feeding this thing. It's like feeding the beast. You open it up, and it's like, oh, and you throw all this stuff in. It's awesome. And you're feeding this thing, and it's turning back into super soil. It's all the waste that would have been dead is all going and dying together and turning into new life for next year's garden. So next year's garden, I'm starting with the super soil that was given by this year's garden. And this is God in the works. This is God's idea of what life and death looks like. Man's idea is so stuck around time. How many of you know we're stuck around time? I'll just throw some phrases out here. You're late. You don't have enough time. Quit wasting time. Why? Because time is this commodity that we don't get any more of, right? It's not a renewable resource. We know that you only get so much of it. We don't even know how much you get, really. You only get so much of it, and it's running out. And so how many of you, when I say you're late, automatically your natural preset in you was a little tiny bit of stress came up, like, because some of you love being on time. I actually love being on time. I've given up that right. When I got married, I gave up that right. Had kids, I gave up the right even more. I do. There's something, I love being on time. I actually love being early. It feels so good to me. The word you're late makes me go, you know, you're running out of time. You don't have enough time. When is it due? You're past due. You're past the due date. All this, some of you are rolling your eyes. I'm encouraging you right now. My phone broke. Oh, there it goes. 15 minutes late. How long is this guy going to speak? Why? Because I got a whole life that's slowly ticking away. I can't get that time back. Here, let me reverse it now. I'm going to help you out now. How about this? Take your time. We've got plenty of time. Don't worry. You got plenty of time. I'm reversing what I said before because I don't want you to be stressed while I speak the rest of this message. You're like, dear Lord, all of you are thinking about something, bills, or, oh, I was supposed to turn that in. I was supposed to mail my phone back. I got an insurance claim on my phone. I was supposed to mail that. Oh, that was yesterday. I got the jury notice in the mail. They said 9 days or I go to jail. Okay, take your time. You got plenty of time. Nah, don't worry about it. Nobody's waiting. You got plenty of time. No, you got all the way till the end of the year. You got so much of what we are wired for is wired around time. How many of you know that God is not wired for time? That man's wired for time, but God is eternal. Everything that God does has the long term in mind. How many of you know that heaven doesn't have a Taco Bell? I'm just saying. Somebody stood up. They got Chipotle, someone said. Okay. My friend in Australia made this huge announcement like 2 days ago on Facebook. He said, it was like a huge announcement. It was Facebook Live. His huge announcement was, Australia's getting their first Taco Bell, and he was so excited. And I'm like, don't do it. No. But he was so excited. He's like, because it's not going to Melbourne. It's not going to Sydney. It's going to Brisbane. This is where he lives. He's like, we get the first Taco Bell. And I was like, I did the little brown pile emoji and like this face. And then ... And he's like, what, you don't like Taco Bell? I'm like, yeah, Taco Bell's fine, but you get to a certain age and you realize Taco Bell is killing you. But how many of you know that we are so used to Taco Bell mindset? I can get Taco Bell 24/7, 365 on Christmas at 12 a.m. I can get Taco Bell. Why? Because Taco Bell is just always open and it's always instant. And you want a burrito, you do not have to wait for someone to cook it. It's already somehow cooked. I don't know how they do it. You can make a specialty item too, and they're like, here you go. Like they had it waiting for you. Why? Because we have a Taco Bell generation where everybody wants everything they want now. It's an instant gratification generation. How many of you young people have sat with someone that's quite a bit older than you and just listened to what they used to do before Taco Bell? Before cell phones? Before Amazon Prime? Before any of that? Before the internet, yeah. There was a time before the internet. Believe it or not. I was just in Redding with my grandparents at my grandparents' house, and my dad was there, which is very rare. And they lived down this little dirt road still, outside of Anderson, California. And they were talking about when they got their first phone at their house. And it was a landline. That means it's attached to the wall. You can't go anywhere with it. No, not even the handset was portable. That also was attached to the wall. It was like you've seen them in movies sometimes. You know, the big plastic one with the thing here and the thing here. So they had that, and it was a dial, rotary phone. Okay, so they had a rotary phone, but get this. I don't know why I'm telling you this. I just thought it was interesting. This rotary phone was also everybody else's on their street. It was a party line. There's no party involved. They were talking about the kid down the road that was like 16 years old, and his girlfriend also lived by him, and so he'd always be on the phone, and they'd have to tell him, get off the phone. Someone else lives here too, meaning the whole neighborhood. And this was their first phone. But have you ever sat and listened? Like people used to do things on purpose because they had to, and now we're just like, Amazon Prime that thing. And my phone fell in hot coffee. I got a brand new one right here. Why? Because I just put in an insurance claim. They sent me a new one. Bam, it showed up in the mail. I got a new phone, and it has all my stuff on it. The cloud. When I first turned this thing on, it had the background that I picked a year ago on my phone. I was like, How do they know? Cloud's a little creepy. Time can be your best friend or it can be your worst enemy. Time can be a motivator or it can feel like defeat. But God does not think in time and space. See, what God creates, we talked about trees. One oak tree can give life to thousands and thousands of oak trees before it lays down on the ground and gives the rest of its life to be nutrients to those oak trees. One redwood can give birth to all these other redwoods. One flower, I don't know what's funny. One flower gives birth to 1,000 flowers. One trout gives birth to thousands of trout, and they follow and they take the same routes and they come back to the same places. And what God creates expands and grows, be fruitful and multiply, gives life, and life keeps going. I would like to introduce to you that we are invited to begin to think the way that God thinks, not to think the way we've been taught to think. I'd like to introduce to you that maybe we were put on this earth to have fruit that lasts. I'd like to introduce to you that maybe God has put us on this earth and the wisdom of God gets us out of thinking oneself and what I get in my whatever many years and what I built and what was mine that dies with me. And we begin to think generationally and we begin to contribute in our lives, not just for ourselves and what we can see in front of us like a Taco Bell generation, but we begin to contribute to our city, to our area, to our families, and to this world, thinking about a generation we will never see with our own eyes. I felt the invitation as I was putting this message together that God was extending to us to begin to think generationally, to begin to think eternally. I don't mean an escapist mindset that we're going to leave this earth and get eternity. And so who cares about sowing in now, because there will be a time we won't be here. So who cares if the building falls apart? Who cares if our cities aren't better? Who cares if my neighbor doesn't come with us? Because I'm going, I know I'm going, and I get eternity. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about an investment that has a victorious eschatology. Eschatology is your belief of how all this ends. Has a victorious eschatology that says that my life and my everyday is a deposit into something good, or it's a deposit into nothing. We've got a really good God who loves us like crazy, who started this whole thing, so why would he end it with hellfire and brimstone? Why would God create people so just a few of them make it to the end as escape, like your back pocket got torn off by the door while it closed on you? God does not have an escapist mentality. God has an eternal mindset. God did not create you for mere survival. God created you to thrive and to overflow, to be fruitful and to multiply, that when you die, your life gave birth and nutrients to things that long live after you do. I think God's business model is different than most of our business model. I think God's family model is different than most all of our family model. I think God's marriage model is different than most all of our marriage model. I don't think we figured it out yet. I think God's extending an invitation for us to begin to see and hear, to see through his eyes, to hear what he's saying, and to begin to position ourselves knowing that our life is a deposit into eternity. That when we think and look and talk about our city, we think and look and talk about our city through the eyes of eternity. That when we hear other people complaining about things going on around us, we don't just join the complaining, we don't just jump on the complain train, but we actually are a voice that thinks and sees and speaks differently. Because we've looked into heaven's eyes, we see what heaven has in store for us tomorrow, so we begin to speak into the tomorrow. Why do we do these, whatever they're called, offering things, declarations, offering things? Why do we do them? because we believe that our words are powerful and our words create tomorrow's world, right? We don't just get together to cheer each other up. Our worship isn't just a bunch of hype, people getting excited about a chorus they like or a hook they like or something like that. Verses that inspire them, and we're like, ah, and then it comes back down. We're not doing this for show. We're doing it because we've seen something greater than ourselves, and now our lives are plugged into the idea of eternity, and everything we do is a deposit. So when we make these declarations, they're not over our own pocketbooks. It's not so my wallet will get fatter. It's I'm declaring over my county. I'm declaring over my state. I'm declaring over this nation. I'm declaring over the world that the world would see that he's good, even through the area of finances. When we worship, we're not just worshiping one fold. We're not just going, okay, we're worshiping to show how much God loves us, but we're worshiping knowing that in this love relationship I have with God, and we come together corporately and worship him and love him, there's an overflow that's happening that's leaving this building and beginning to have ripple effects through our county. We know that every time we get together for worship, there's a deposit being made in this area. We start to have eyes that think eternally rather than eyes that think superficially and right now. I want us to begin to move from organized to organic. Organized is something that man puts together, and we do it for a reason, and its reason is very temporal, and this reason is right now, and this reason satisfies the need we have right now. But organic is like that compost. Organic's like my garden. Organic is like how God builds. Organic's like the trees that give life to the ones around them. Organic naturally happens, and I want us to move from organized heaven thoughts to organic culture of heaven, where we start to naturally move and think and breathe and have our being in him in such a way that it deposits into eternity and into our area. I want us to move from man-made constructs to God-made culture, where when people come in this building, or maybe they don't ever, when people run into us at work, or people run into us at the grocery store, or people run into us at the beach, or people run into us wherever we happen to be, that they run into the culture of heaven, and the culture of heaven looks like honor. The culture of heaven looks like peace. The culture of heaven looks like joy. The culture of heaven looks like power. The culture of heaven looks like love. The culture of heaven looks like Jesus. And we know that our lives, every interaction I have with someone is a deposit either for heaven or it's just a deposit into nothing. But it's up to me. Did I just ruin our live feed by jumping down here? Everybody's like, oh gosh, follow him. Tyler's on it. Tyler's the man. When we begin to look at our lives bigger than today and tomorrow, but we begin to look at our lives that I am a piece of eternity. And however many years I get, I am depositing into eternity here on this earth. I am depositing into my children and their friends. I'm depositing into their children. I'm depositing into their children. I'm depositing into a generation I may never see with my eyes, but I know they're coming, and they're going to get a world that we left them. Now, a lot of the time, it's crazy to think in a way of the entire world, right? I mean, anybody else, it feels like a big thing. We start to think, okay, I'm going to impact the entire world. It's awesome. We are impacting the world. We are called to impact the world. But let me just bring it back for us and make it very palatable. I want us to all start thinking eternally when we think about our area. Let's start there. We think about Humboldt County. I have a vision for Humboldt County. It's not my own vision. It's a vision from pastors that have come before me, from believers that have come before me, from prophetic words since before I ever knew Humboldt County existed. It's God's vision for Humboldt County, and God has always had a vision for Humboldt County. Now, I can wake up in the morning, and I can be very self-centered, and I can think about what my day is going to bring me and how I feel about my day and what kind of sleep I got. And it's just a thing, right? We all do it, right? Anybody with me? No? Okay. And I can go to work and I can think about, man, I can't wait till it's that time so I can go home, and I can go home, and then I can think, oh, what am I going to watch on Netflix? And I can give in to the mundane of life and the mundane of the day and think, well, today doesn't really have any effect on my entire life. I'm just going to try to get through today. And I can have a mindset that's very based on time, and it's just getting through today. Tomorrow will come. It'll be a new day. I can get through it. Or I can have a mindset that's based on heaven, that's based on eternity. When I wake up in the morning, it doesn't matter what cards are dealt to me. I know it's a winning hand in the hand of God. I wake up with a hopeful mindset. Why? Because my source is a source of hope. He's my source. My day isn't my source. My source is a source of hope. So I wake up with a hopeful mindset, and I take on my day with a hopeful mindset. I'm plugged into a community of believers that carry hope, that overflow with joy, that are excited about this area, that are excited about Humboldt County. And so the wind is at my back when I wake up because I can feel the momentum of this group of people. And I go to my work knowing that maybe I am making burritos at Taco Bell. This is a thing, right? Does anybody make burritos at Taco Bell? No one? Thank you. I was going to say, we need a light at Taco Bell. Somebody go get a job at Taco Bell. Why? Because Taco Bell can be mundane and it can be rolling burritos, or I can go to Taco Bell knowing that I am a light on a hill and a city set on a hill cannot be hidden. And when I roll burritos, I'm rolling the best burrito the drive-thru's ever seen. And when my coworkers have interactions with me, they're interacting with heaven. And when my boss looks at me, they say, I need 10 employees just like you. I don't know what it is about you, but when you're here, everything just runs smoother. Why? Because I bring a heavenly mindset to Taco Bell. See, I'm not saying all of us need to be the president of the United States to make an impact. I'm saying all of us need to think long term when we do the mundane of our daily lives, thinking eternally, and we'll bring eternity into the mundane. And all of a sudden, it's not mundane, but it's a deposit from heaven to earth, on earth as it is in heaven. It's me and Hector at the locker room, Health Sport. This is funny to me. Okay, first of all, let me just tell you that the locker room at Health Sport, there's not anybody with clothes on in it. And it's like this thing that they do. They just walk around talking and everything. Everything's happening without clothes. I'm like, all right. But it's me and Hector praying for a guy because, look, he may or may not have had clothes on, but when I walked in, he looked at me, I looked at him, I said, hey, how you doing? And he fell apart right in front of me. A grown man in the locker room, naked, crying. It's a first for everything. It was a first for me. But he really had a reason to be crying. And I really had a choice. I could think through what's comfortable and go to my locker that was right around the corner. Or I could see eternity standing in front of me. The opportunity of eternity standing in front of me. So the next 5 or 6 people that walked in the door, this is what they saw. They saw 2 dudes with their hands on this one guy's shoulder who was naked crying, and we were praying for him. And people made a little bit of a wide berth around us, and the locker room got very quiet. Why? Because church was happening in the locker room. There's another guy who's an amazing man that goes there, and he's one of the worship leaders at a local church. And I hadn't seen him in a few months. And he came in, and this time he had a cane. And he's walking with a cane. He looked like he was in a lot of pain. And I can go on with my day and go, I'm just here to work out. I got my noise-canceling headphones on. I can't hear anything anybody's saying. I'm going to go on with my day. And I can think about my day and my right now and my time that I have at the gym. Or I can have heaven's mindset, and I start to have an eternal mindset. And when I look around, I go, you know what? Not on my watch. I only get a certain amount of days here on this earth. And that's important. And so while I'm here on this earth, I want to be depositing into eternity rather than just taking from myself. So this guy's limping, and I said, hey, man, what's up? I haven't seen you in a while. He said, yeah, I haven't been here in a while. I said, last time I saw you, you didn't have that. He goes, no, man, my entire hip is just destroyed. Just over time it's happened. He went to physical therapy, and they made it worse because they didn't realize it was bone on bone. So you have a choice right there. Am I a child of eternity, or am I just a man at the gym for an hour and a half? I felt that. I needed to be a little more honest. A little more honest, not fully honest. It depends if the sauna and the hot tub are kicking or not. So there I am, and I have an opportunity, or I have a choice at least. Do I have an opportunity, or do I go on with life? And I just stopped. I said, hey, man. I knew he was a worship leader, and I said, hey, man, you know God's good. He said, I know he is. And I said, all right, well, let's go after this right now then. Has anybody prayed for you yet? He's like, I've been praying. I said, well, let me join with you. Let's pray right here. So in the middle of the gym, everybody's banging weights and clanging things, and everybody's macho, and it's a competition of who has the widest arms, because somehow that means I have lats, whether I have them or not. It's called ILS. It's imaginary lat syndrome, and you walk around. And some people actually have a reason. Like there's some guys there, you're like, yeah, he's got a reason. But most of the rest of them, and it's a beauty pageant, and then all of a sudden, church starts happening at the health sport. Why? Because this time, and I'm not perfect at this, but this time, I stopped, and I prayed for the guy. And we really prayed. It wasn't just a shotgun prayer because I'm thinking about what everybody else is thinking. I get my mind out of what everybody else is thinking. I plug into eternity. I lock eyes with my dad. And when I lock eyes with my dad, I start to pray a prayer that I can hear in heaven, and I voice it on earth. And I start to agree with heaven on earth. And I pray for this guy. And this guy, he was really like touched by this and heartfelt. And he gave me this huge hug. And he calls me Reverend now, which is really funny. I feel like I need to stand up taller when he says it. I'm like, but every day of our life is an opportunity. And it's an opportunity to get through the day and survive, or to thrive and think eternally. God did not make you to survive. God has created you to thrive. God does not make things that just make it. God thinks eternally, and everything invests in a tomorrow that you might not see. Love, there's no love found in a one-night stand. I could just leave that there. We could just have, that was church. Should have just got up and said that. There's no love found in a one-night stand. Love is long-term. Love is committed. Love is loyal. Love doesn't just try on love. God, didn't work. Love grows roots. Love stands in one place, it grows roots and says, I'm not going anywhere. See, true love is love that comes from God. It's love that can't be quenched. It's love that's everlasting. It's love that never gives up. It never runs out. It's love that fights for you. It's love that goes before you. It's love that walks beside you. It's love that guards your backside. It's love that covers you and encompasses you. It's love that's seen you yesterday and loves you. It's love that sees you today and loves you. It's love that's seen you tomorrow and still loves you. 1 Peter says God is love. And as we begin to have an eternal mindset and we partner with God, we are partnering with eternal love. And we are saying that we're not here for a one-night stand. We're not here to just see if we like this area. We're not here to be in it when it's good, and when it's bad, we're out the door looking for something else. We're not just a Taco Bell generation, but we are people of love that put on love, that have love in us, that let our feet grow roots in love. And in this area, we say we're not going anywhere. This is the city God's given us. This is the county God's given us. This is the state God's given us. This is the nation God's given us. I could have been born on any place in the planet. I could have been born at any year in time, but God chose to put me here right now for a time such as this, and the same goes for you. And see, I told you I could talk all day. I got to be done. I'm done. We started, I'm done. So that's what I wanted to say. Everybody stand with me, please. I could talk all day about this. I'm going to leave you with this. Thanks, buddy. He saved my wallet, just in case any of you had anything in mind. I always throw my wallet and my phone on the front seat and leave it there, right there on the front of the church. And I've had multiple people come up to me and be like, hey, you left your wallet there. And I'm like, well, if I can't do that at church, then I can't do that anywhere. Maybe I can't do it anywhere, but I just have this, thought of humanity that can be trusted. Every answer, every solution, every breakthrough, every eternal construct is found in a relationship to his love. Every answer, every solution. I'm going to leave you with this. Your father is a lion. Your father is an all-consuming fire. Your Father is almighty and unstoppable. So why should we settle for a life that doesn't exhibit those same attributes? You were put here for a reason. You're not put here to be quiet. You're not put here for a 9 to 5. Those are important. They're part of life. But that's not your destiny and the full scope of your life. Yes, you're in a 9 to 5, but you are here having an earthly experience as an ambassador of heaven. You are here carrying the love of God and the overflow of heaven with eyes that see things eternally. You get to represent Dad when you go to work. You get to represent Dad when you're at Safeway. You get to represent Dad at Winco. You get to represent him on the beach. Me and Spencer, I don't know how many people we've prayed for on the beach here. What are we out there doing? We're out there catching waves. But you know what? The opportunity presents itself. When you can set your mind on eternity and start to look around with eyes that's bigger than yourself, the opportunity will be right in front of you. For some of you, it might be asking somebody in the locker room, hey, how you doing today? It might be recognizing, hey, I see that guy all the time, and this time he's got a cane. What changed? Might be going to work and rolling the best burrito they've ever seen and working your tail off and representing heaven in such a way that they know you're a Christian and they go, man, you're the best employee we have. Because you're representing something so much bigger than yourself. For some of you, it might be getting on these parking teams. Get on our parking teams. We need people on parking teams. Parking teams are bigger than a flag and a cool yellow vest that I bought. Parking teams are, I am the first touch of Jesus that anybody will get that comes to this church. They're going to pull in, they're going to see me first. What they're going to see is Jesus, because I'm going to treat them the way that Jesus wanted me to treat them. And I'm going to park them in a good spot, and I'm going to give them an umbrella if it's raining, and they're going to walk into church already feeling loved. Why? Joel, come on. Joel leads our parking teams. Why? Because it's not just about parking cars, but I'm depositing into eternity that when people come here, the experience they have with this family is an experience of love and care and intentionality. Get on the parking teams. Get on the greeting teams. Get on the usher teams. Serve at work. Serve your family. I know I'm supposed to end. Our marriages should not just be for the years that we have together, but when we are gone, and we've lived our lives, what we've sown into our marriages should be transferred down through the generations to come, because they saw how we lived. And one day there's a generation you never saw, but your marriage sowed into that generation. Our churches are not Club Meds. This is not the Boy Scouts of America. We're not the Shriners. We're not any of those things. Those are all taken. This should be an eternal family. When people come in, they have contact with an eternal Father. They have contact with eternal love. And when they walk out, they're never the same. Their lives change. And for generations, that affects their children and their children and their children and their children. Everybody put a hand on your heart. Father, I ask that you would begin to teach us how to think eternally. God, I ask that you would begin to teach us how to think outside of our own time and space, outside of our own bills and our own things in the mail and the whatever else is happening in life. Our car and its issues or whatever it is. God, I ask that you would give us eyes to see something greater than ourselves. God, that you would raise us up out of the trees that we would be able to see the lay of the land. God, I thank you that every single one of us was born in this time, in this place, that we are here now for a reason, that God, you don't create anything for waste or survival. You create to thrive, to be fruitful, and to multiply. So God, right now, I just speak destiny. I speak dreams. I speak an ability to begin to dream with you, God. I speak inventions. I speak, God, that we would be the best employees that the county's ever seen, that we would be the best teachers if we're teaching that the county has ever seen. God, that what we do, heaven would back. God, that what we do, heaven's blessing would be on. That man would see our good works and they would begin to glorify you because we've taken our eyes out of the daily and we begin to set them on the eternal. God, I ask the generations that we've never seen would begin to, when they come to this world, generations that we won't be here for, God. I ask that you would set our lives up, that it would be a deposit into that the fruit that they bear would be the nutrients of our lives. Holy Spirit, we love you. We thank you that you have an idea for this county, and that idea is good. I thank you that you love Eureka. You're not disappointed in Eureka, but you love Eureka. God, I thank you that you've put us in one of the most beautiful places on the face of the planet. God, thank you for that. What a blessing it is to live in a place that just overflows with beauty, a place that has your attributes when we drive down the road. We can see your beauty in the things that you've placed around us, God. And Lord, I ask that you would give us a heart to begin to stand up and call out the things that are yours, God, that you give us a heart to stand up and declare over our economy, to declare over our children, to declare over our marriages, to declare over our government, our police, our fire stations, that we would begin to be a voice, a mouthpiece. Not only that, but we would take action, that we would be the feet and hands of you, Jesus. Father, I ask that you would begin to convict our hearts as we go about our days to be eternal people rather than right now people. God, I thank you for the blessing on this family. In Jesus' name, amen.